7:05 p.m. Now calling this meeting to order. Stephanie, can we please get roll call?
Commissioner Ali,
Present.
Commissioner Daniel,
Present.
Commissioner Dillard,
Present.
Commissioner Gathua, Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Nobis,
Has a prior engagement.
Commissioner Rivera,
Here.
and Commissioner Traore.
Present.
Commissioner Gathua, I just did roll call, so thank you.
With that, we're on to agenda item number 3, reading of the land acknowledgement.
I can read it. We meet today in the community of Iowa City, which now occupies the homelands of Native American nations to whom we owe our commitment and dedication. The area of Iowa City was once within the homelands of the Iowa, Meskwaki, and Sauk. And because history is complex and time goes far back beyond memory, we also acknowledge the ancient connections of many other Indigenous peoples here. The history of broken treaties and forced removal that dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their homelands was and is an act of colonization and genocide that we cannot erase. We implore the Iowa City community to commit to understanding and addressing these injustices as we work towards equity, restoration, and reparations.
Now, agenda item number 4, approval of meeting minutes from November 4th. Does anyone have any changes that they'd like to make to these? No, I don't have any myself. I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from November 4th, 2021.
Second.
Commissioner Ali,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel,
Yay.
Commissioner Dillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Gathua,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera,
Yes.
and Commissioner Traore.
Yes. Next, agenda item number 6, discuss city council work session of November 30th, 2021 on the TRC.
Public comment first. 5.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry, everyone. Hold up one second. Hello. Is he saying back here?
The seats up there are available.
All right, next agenda item number 5, public comment of items not on the agenda. Commentators shall address the TRC for no more than 5 minutes. TRC members shall not engage in discussion with the public concerning said times. I just want to note in terms of public comment, if there's a need to go over your 5 minutes, we'll be flexible with that. Is that okay? We have the microphones set up right here. If you'd like to do public comment, you can just be sure to state your name. Not gonna make you do the address thing, and can go from there.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm not the greatest public speaker, so I'm a better writer. So I wrote out my statement. And Stephanie, I have a digital copy of this, so I'll forward it to you afterwards as well. Okay, so here we go. So I don't know if you're all aware of this, but a Black man was lynched in Grinnell last year. And the reason why I bring this up, and I wouldn't really fault you guys for not knowing this, because there wasn't really a whole lot of coverage of the fact. And the reason why I bring it up is because the trial of the men who murdered, and I want to emphasize that murdered this man, ended just yesterday in Sigourney, which is about an hour-ish away from here. I'm already getting, okay. So the trial of the men who perpetrated this act ended yesterday about an hour away in Sigourney. They strung Michael Williams up by his neck in a basement, bragged about the murder to their friends, and then left his body burning in a ditch. Just yesterday, as I noted, they were found guilty of first-degree murder. And some of you, I don't know, I'm an abolitionist. This is not necessarily punitive punishment is not my cup of tea, but I recognize that to a lot of people, this probably strikes them as justice. But I've been following this case ever since it happened September of last year. And what I can't forget is how when it first happened, the cops tried to claim that it had nothing to do with race. It's a literal fucking lynching. I'm sorry. Not only that, but the chair of the Iowa-Nebraska NAACP also tried to claim it had nothing to do with race. Chris Kelly, I don't know if you guys recognize this name, another black man, was beaten and tased by nearly a dozen ICPD officers just outside of the waterfront Hy-Vee. That happened 2 years ago. He was recently cleared of that about a year and a couple of months ago. And in that case, a federal judge literally said that it was the clearest instance of walking while black that he had ever seen. And Kelly is now suing the city, Iowa City, for the violation of his civil rights. And just like the police in Grinnell, just like Betty Andrews, for those of you who don't know, that is the chair of the Iowa-Nebraska NAACP, the city is insisting, this city that occupies the building that we are in right now is insisting that just like that case, Mr. Kelly's case has nothing to do with race. 2 days ago, not in this building, usually in this building, but in the senior center, counselors Janice Weiner and Laura Burgess insisted that the arrest of this man right here, the chair of this very commission, had nothing to do with his race, that it was just an unfortunate coincidence, that it was literally, in Janice Weiner's terms, bad optics. Now, the good liberal people of Iowa City, good liberal Iowa City, practically pissed themselves in 2016 when Donald Trump was elected, going on and on and on about the specter of creeping fascism. Yet we actually see fascism literally right here on our front doorstep. And our good liberal leaders act like it's no big fucking deal. Now, I wonder how many of them probably have ever heard of Makeda Scott. Last summer, I was out in the streets last summer. We shouted her name every single night. How many of them would know who Breonna Taylor is? We shouted her name too. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I apologize. Why is it that we hear them say over and over and over again, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and yet the brutalization of Black lives right here in our town never seems to be on their radar? Last year, the Iowa City City Council set aside $1 million for quote unquote Black Lives Matter. That's literally what the fund is called. The fund, if you look it up in the city register, is called BLM. And yet to date, they have not spent a single penny of this money. Not only have they not spent it, this commission actually tried to spend some of that money and refused to let you do it. They have no plans to spend any of it. They're not making any plans because they don't give a crap. Because it seems that now that we're not standing on their front lawns, they don't give a shit anymore. The threat is gone, so as far as they're concerned, they can just move on. Now, I can't speak for anyone else who came out in the streets last summer, but I, for one, and I apologize if this comes off as a little harsh, I didn't put my body on the line so y'all could play footsie with city council. How many times do they have to punch you in the face before you realize that this is a political struggle, and an incredibly serious one at that? These good liberal leaders you're now all expected to play nice with are the very same people who shit on us constantly last summer. And let's be clear, you all are meeting here because we were out there. Now, you probably saw the absolutely horrendous image of several young people being barreled through by a car in Burlington. What you probably never saw were the dozens of slightly less spectacular, but no less dangerous incidents that occurred at every single protest. I myself was standing less than 20 feet away when a dear friend of mine, when a fascist piece of shit backed his car right into him. And you want to know what he said when he got up off the ground? People were chasing after the car. Some people were banging on it. They wanted to go get him. He got up off the ground and he said to them, "That's not who we are." He calmed everybody down and he got back in line. This is the same person who on an almost weekly basis drags his ass out of bed early in the morning to go stand out in front of the Emma Goldman Clinic so that when people go there for reproductive services, they don't have to be harassed by the complete fascist pieces of shit who torment them. That's what he does. He stands between people who just want to live their lives and the people who would rather see them dead. Now, you may object to my hyperbolic statement, my claim of these are fascists. Maybe you would prefer white supremacists. There's not really a big difference. Fascism literally came out of American white supremacy. But the reason why I say that is because when that happened, when that incident that I was standing, it could have happened to me. As they drove off, the woman who was sitting in that car, she yelled out, "White power." So as it turns out, you don't actually have to worry about creeping fascism because the fascism is already here. We saw it every day. And some of its most gleeful perpetrators are in this building. They wear a badge. They carry a gun. You know who I'm talking about. And before you all become their next target, I realize I've gone on way too long. You might want to ask yourself, who would actually stand between you all and them? Do you think it would be Pauline Taylor? Do you think it would be Janice Weiner? Do you think it would be Laura Burgess? Do you think it would be the mayor? Do you think it would literally be the man who has done everything in his power to make sure that this commission fails? Or do you think it would be that young man who got his ass up off the ground, got back in line, and went again? Now, I didn't come here with a particular demand, and I realize that my statement is kind of all over the place, and it's a little, I prefer to write. I'm not a good speaker, but I'm not asking anything of you, but I know that this commission is meeting with city council in a couple of weeks, part of a joint work session. I want you to keep that in mind when they tell you to try and get along with them. Thank you.
Do we have any other public comment?
Hello, my name is Nasreen Gali,
And my name is Maria Kazembe.
and we're here to talk about what has been going on in our school district and our Black Student Union. We attend Iowa City West High School, and over the last weekend, a video leaked of a white student saying that he will stab all N-words in the eyes, as well as a photo of another student doing blackface. This is not a new or surprising experience for us and our classmates at West High. Racist remarks and actions are heard repeatedly and seen all over West High and other high schools in the Iowa City Community School District. In response to the video leaked this weekend, our school admins held a meeting for students the following Monday to speak about how that video impacted us. I, along with many other students, did not find the meeting sufficient enough and did not feel heard. After the meeting, me and Deasia, with the help of other students, started a school protest. We peacefully protested around West High until the district equity board came. During the protest, only 2 teachers protested with us. Some students laughed at us as we walked by, and a white student even asked a protester to give him a lap dance while we were protesting in the cafeteria. The respect from students and teachers at West High is completely not there. The environment at West High is not supportive of Black rights. This needs to change, not just at West, but throughout all ICCSD high schools, middle schools, and even elementary schools. Northwest Junior High and Liberty High School have peacefully protested as well regarding the same issues going on in their schools. Since the protest, I have been in numerous meetings with the district and my school's admin team, and still not enough is being done. In these meetings, we spoke with the district and our school principal about what is going on in our school and what we would like to change multiple times. I also had meetings regarding rumors being spread from anonymous sources that we were planning a violent protest with firearms and knives. Since these rumors sparked up, the school has tried to get me to make a public statement about it on my social media instead of them doing it. We have never and never will plan or condone a violent protest, period. All we are asking for is to be treated with respect and kindness by students and teachers when we were in school.
In response to these events, I felt that the need to create a 2021 Black Student Union, or otherwise known as BSU, was never more apparent. Nisreen and I, along with our close teammates Bennett Kariuki and Talia Ochola, formed the BSU in order to provide a platform for Black students to be heard. The Black Student Union is an organization that advocates the needs of Black students while empowering, teaching, discussing, and exploring the Black experience. BSU serves as a liaison between students and Black individuals and West High. Some of our objectives include, but are not limited to, planning protests, connecting Black identifying individuals, enriching the environment for Black students attending a predominantly white school, and giving said students opportunities and resources to academically succeed. Even though the 2021 BSU at West High has only been established for a few weeks, we've created solutions to prevent further disrespect to the Black community, inspired younger leaders to take action, and collaborated with student leaders within the ICCSD to create BSUs at their own schools. Most recently, we have gotten acknowledgement from the Iowa Freedom Riders, who further recruited 2 of our members. We're currently focused on making sure that those who have belittled, silenced, or ignored Black individuals at West High face the repercussions that they rightly deserve. There have been many times where Black students were gaslighted or told by those in the position to help them that they were inherently targeting themselves. That we are imagining our individual experiences of racism and victimizing ourselves. What's going on at West High is very real and has serious impacts on the physical and mental beings of not only Black students, but other marginalized communities. During one of our discussions with the Department of Equity, a Black student explained that they were going to give up the sport that they had planned to go into college for because of the racism that runs deep within West High and them not wanting to be part of a racist organization. Since the well-being of Black students has been neglected, the BSU will subsequently fight for students who feel stuck and unsupported. We will continue to work to make West High a school that advocates for and has an inclusive environment for minorities.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, no replies to the public comments. I know it's tough, but if anyone else has public comment.
Hi y'all. My name is Dan Cobble, and I'm just here to say I wasn't even planning to speak, but I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you're doing and for going through all the crap that you had to go through to try to make the difference that you know will be best for our community. I have the tremendous amount of respect for each and every member of this commission, and I want to support you any way that I can. And the people in power may not have respect for you, but the people in the community know that you're doing good work. And if you need anything at all, just let me know. So thank you.
Do we have anyone else for public comment? Oh, yeah. After you go, we have someone attending that I'd also like to comment.
Hello, my name is Noah. I'm also here to say thank you all for all y'all are doing. It's greatly appreciated and tremendous respect for all of you. And I also just want to encourage y'all to fight the city because fuck Iowa City and their fascist police. I mean, what they did after last meeting arresting you is clear, open, unabashed fascism. And I just want you to know that you're not alone in that fight and to fight the city. Thank you.
Next, we have Taylor Cohn.
Hi, yes,
I didn't say that right.
yeah. I'm Taylor Cohn. I just wanted to express support for the chair and the other members of this commission after what was, in my and others' opinion, clearly an act of retaliation by the police 2 weeks ago after this commission met. If the city was serious, not only about your work, but about your bodily safety, they would be reacting completely differently from how they are right now. As an observer, I think there's no chance of them doing that. We're in November of 2021. This conversation has been happening since summer of 2020, beyond that. And they have proved over and over and over that they're playing with these buzzwords about systemic racism. But as Councillor Weiner even said on Tuesday, they need to, quote, be aware of the optics. And the abuse and disrespect you all have received from the very people who appointed you proves that optics was all this was ever about to them. And that this arrest happened and they haven't strongly condemned it shows what they will stoop to and what they will let happen to keep you from doing any work that will challenge the system they have invested their lives and their careers and their interests into. So I'm frankly scared for you and the people this commission is supposed to help. This isn't a coincidence or an accident that the chair has been targeted by ICPD, and it's unsurprising, but no less alarming that the city's response has been PR, damage control, and not taking accountability for their part in it, for the way the members of the council have disrespected and devalued this commission and its mission, even openly calling for it to be restarted at work sessions. To be clear, I don't expect integrity from politicians, but this is a moment where nothing else would be acceptable. For the narrative about the retaliation this commission is experiencing to be smoothed out, that can't happen. For Councillor Burgess to try to redirect the conversation and say this is how the system works, as if she is not a participant, that can't be allowed to happen. For the mayor's role in this to get swept away or forgotten, the record has to stay straight about this being retaliation from the city, deliberate on the part of some, if not all, and if not deliberate on the part of others, a clear result of their efforts to delegitimize your work. So I just wanted to say I support you all, and frankly, fuck 12.
Do we have anyone else for public comment? And thank you, Taylor. All right. We now move on to agenda item number 6, discuss city council work session of November 30th. Was just talking to Stephanie a second ago. I'm not sure we have confirmation that it'll be a joint session. What?
That's correct. At this time, it's a work session, a regular work session for the city council. It has not been set up as a joint meeting with the TRC.
Had something changed or something of that
That's
nature?
how it was always set up.
Okay, because someone had reached out to, I believe, Amel, was it you? Like, had one of them reached out to you like a while ago, like a few weeks ago about it? Okay. Yeah, I'd heard that there's a possibility it could have been a work session at the beginning. So I guess it had just been on the last few agendas, kind of just to push that idea, because I know they see at least things that are approved in our meeting minutes if they're mentioned. But not really sure where we're at with them. But once again, as many of us have said in these last few meetings, and as we still feel, or at least I still feel now, I don't know that we really need whatever guidance it is that they want to give at this point, unless it's on when can budget money be spent and how fast can it get out there. So that's the most important thing to me right now from them. Otherwise, it all depends on who we're just going to have participating with us and what we want to get accomplished and getting our timeline extended. All those things can be up to us when it comes to that budget, looking to them for that, because by the mandate that they wrote themselves, this commission cannot end until or unless there's a facilitator group selected by us and put into place. Also requires payment on top of that. So ball's in their court. Hope they don't slack that one off too much. Anyone else have anything on that?
I was just gonna suggest kind of combining 6 and 7 together, just because I want to discuss what I have for the proposed timeline from like the notes that I took from the last meeting. If that's okay, can I share my screen?
Give me a second, please.
Okay.
At some point, we can ask for public comment on these agenda items.
Yeah, I think we should have it.
Yeah, actually, if you all do want to kind of combine the 6 and 7 and before we speak more, we can just let public comment go.
We don't need to vote on that. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Is there anyone from the public that does want to speak on these items? Anything on that potential of the work session or that voting on a proposed timeline extension? All right, Mel, just want to give you that chance to share some of the highlights of this one.
Well, so the last 2 weeks have been heavy for me, so I haven't had enough time to really work on this, which is why I was gonna combine these two and just ask for more guidance from you guys. So this is what I had showed you guys last week. And the notes that I took were from Kevo. They wanted to get input from organizations that are directly involved within the communities that we want to engage in. And I think that we might hear more about that later. And Chastity had mentioned pushing the timeline to June 2023 because of the worry that it would not be enough time. 2 months would be a little bit pushing it if to kind of look over all the testimonies and develop a report. So this is kind of, it's pretty much, it's literally the same thing, just different timelines. And there were some questions here and some comments that I had. So we have people that are willing to meet with us and begin training us on how to facilitate like the truth telling session, how to prepare public facing materials to assist attendees with participation, including helping with developing a script for events, questions for witnesses, etc. So Eduardo Gonzalez and team have offered their help on all of that. Eduardo obviously has been involved in these processes before, and he has a lot of templates and things that we could work from. And then this kind of ties into what Mo was saying earlier, the support stuff, but I just wanted to leave this here because I do think that it's important to note that if they're not going to let us hire an entire team that has it, there are going to be things that are just like out of our capacity. You know, like I never knew what an RFP was and it was hard and I did it, but there's no way that I'm going to be able to strategically plan or even have an idea of what strategic planning would look like as it pertains to all of the specific topics that we want to cover in the city. So I had remembered from like a long time ago, Steph, we had talked about you hiring someone within your office and like making a job posting. And I didn't know if that was still on the table or how would that work? Just because the budget stuff is just so weird right now.
Yeah, I mean, any position that would be created would have to go through city council. That's not.
It would still
Yeah,
have to go, even if,
correct.
yeah, once we make the job and stuff, they would have to approve of the job in your department.
Well, the funding for the position would come out of the budget.
Okay,
And so that then would make it in the purview of the city council.
okay. So yeah, those are the kind of things that I was just thinking of off the top of my head. I don't know whether you guys feel like pushing it to June 2023 is better than pushing it to having the report by December of 2022, which is 13 months from now. So I'm open to any suggestions and any ideas.
I can go right now. It's pretty evident and clear that we need to hear these truths. We just heard a couple today. I don't know about the date. I'm willing to talk about which date we're going to push it to, but these truths need to be told. We heard from the public. We heard from people that came here. We need more time to do our work. So that's my input on it. And whatever date people want to, talk about how far it should go, whether it should go to this date, that's easy for us to work out. So
Yeah, do you think that, so with that, then do you think we should, since the idea was to extend it a little longer to June, then do you think we should spend more time in 2022 collecting testimony? And then maybe start from the end of next year into the beginning of 2023, kind of doing the strategic planning, like looking and report making?
I agree with that.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you'd want to
And
spend
ha-
longer
and
time.
even if you want to do more time, I would agree with that at
Yeah.
this point.
Absolutely. I'd say those things, and in terms of the collaboration with community organizations, can do any truth telling events or like kind of getting to know you sessions outside of the public TRC meetings. So we can kind of test these things out, see how they work, and make sure that when we actually roll them out, it's running smoothly. And we also have a good standing with those community groups.
So I think that it's important that we do vote on at least one of these if we think it should be pushed to June 2023 or that first one. And Steph, I realize I didn't send you this copy of the second one. I'll send it to you right after I'm done sharing my screen.
I have a logistical question for staff. If we make a recommendation, will it be on city's agenda for their November 30th work session?
So if you make a recommendation tonight on any matter on the agenda, it would go in the city council information packet because they would be draft minutes. They would not go on a city council formal agenda until their next meeting, which would be December 14th, I believe. Having said that, I mean, can they be made aware of the recommendation? That certainly can be done, but in terms of it being on a formal council agenda, that wouldn't be until December 14th.
Thank you.
So I just have two quick questions on that. One, so I know that they always have the option of deciding to pick something up or not, but are there any stipulations of situations from commissions where they're forced to have something on the agenda?
Not that I'm aware of.
Like if there's anything that comes up in terms of passing some kind of budget or at least making a recommendation to allow for clearance of a hiring or a budget, are those situations where they're required?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, the council agenda is within that purview and not really boards and commissions. In terms of content.
Okay. With that, is that the only meeting they have in December too, by the way?
Correct.
Okay.
And then our meeting in December is December 3rd. And do we have a second December meeting?
It'd be, yeah, the 3rd and then the 17th, I think. Yeah, 1st and 3rd.
Yeah, the 17th.
Vice Chair, as you were looking at this timeline, and other commissioners can provide input on this as well, in terms of an extended fact-finding sort of season for us throughout all of 2022, did you anticipate that this commission might have opportunities to make recommendations to City Council on how to allocate funds from the BLM fund throughout that time? That's kind of a vague question, but
Like throughout the entire timeline?
yeah, like is there room from the timeline that you've proposed for us to be concurrently, doing truth-telling sessions while also pushing City Council to start allocating money?
I feel like, yeah, I
Yes.
definitely think so. I think it allows for that.
And the only other concern that I would have too is, if we wait till December 14th and go to their meeting then what if they don't take action then? Then we're gonna be running out of time. So hopefully that works out. It hasn't been working out before, but hopefully it works out because, basically with the holidays coming up, that'll put us at 6 months.
Hope is all we got, Eric.
I
That's
know.
all we got.
I'm just
so-
saying, I just want to make that I want to put that
Well,
on the record because
I think we got a little more than that because, I mean, with these community groups, if, some things that have been shot down have just been more people at a meeting to speak against us and for us. So to me, one thing of these community groups is those that are willing to stand with us and wanting to work with us, wanting this work to be done. If they're willing to come to these city council meetings with us, speak in support of it, or talk in public comment and ask them to actually act on it, becomes a lot harder not to. There's a lot of reporters in those rooms. Those stories get right themselves. So otherwise, even I still want to vote on this today,
Okay.
but I say that community group part because I think without it, I mean, from what I've seen thus far, I don't have any faith that they would have it on the December 14th one.
And if, Steph, this is a question for you. And if we vote on it today, it would be on that December 14th agenda, but are we able to edit it and stuff before then? Like, does it have to be this version that we vote on, or can we?
It would have to, well, I mean, because if you edit it at a future meeting, then it becomes draft again.
Okay,
So, yeah. And one thing also, you know, the city council at the formal meetings, there always is an opportunity for comments of items not on the agenda.
yeah.
So you wouldn't have responses or engagement, but that wouldn't, you know, prevent commissioners from talking during that agenda item.
Another strategic piece of making sure we get that community comment that at their December 14th meeting, first meeting they have in January, is bringing in their new city council members, picking their mayor, ratifying, et cetera. If you don't make a decision by then and you don't make a decision at that first meeting, I'm willing to bet the news stories would be less about the new city council being created and more about the fact that new city council created, still haven't done anything on the TRC, still haven't spent any of $1 million. So again, ball's in their court. Speaking to more and more community members, becoming very, very clear to more of them that not much to say against us at this point, but of course, we always have room to improve. And that main piece is just making sure we stay connected more so to them, because that's who really matters. And then for me, for the timeline extension, I know I've been going back and forth on this, but you know what? At this point, I'm willing to still live here till June 2023 if needed.
I agree.
Do you have a June 2023 version of this?
Can you say that again?
Do you have a June 2023 version of this?
Yeah, this was the June 2023 version, but I just didn't know how long we wanted to extend like the last portion. So I didn't know if we wanted to divide it into like analyzing and then writing the report. So, well, we've got June, is this, so that's 7 months. So I was thinking like 4 months analyzing, 3 months getting the report written. And if anyone that's on Zoom, Chastity or Daphne, if you guys have anything that would be helpful.
June 2023 sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I think we need to take our time to get this done.
Yeah.
What?
I think, I mean, there's room for May to June of 2023 being like our opportunity to share our findings and really like publicly announce what our recommendations are for the city and for the community, for us to share any video content we try to create. So that can be, yeah, like our.
We're not able to talk about public comment at all.
Not directly replying to the person, but there's that option of if you have something indirect on it, I think, Stephanie, would that be okay during like the announcements portion, as long as we don't respond?
No, you can take public comment. This is an agenda item. So if you want to take public
Oh,
comment.
take public comment on this, or?
No,
Oh, you wanted to
more
say
so
something.
comment on or talk about and discuss
Oh,
public
yeah.
comment that has already been
Simple
brought up,
answer.
even just tonight.
Nope.
I'm not sure. Can you rephrase? I'm not sure. I'm
He's asking
understanding
if he
what
can
you're
respond to a commentator
Are
that
we- are
made
we
a
allowed to
comment during
discuss
public
this?
comment.
Yeah, you
Wow.
can, yeah, it's an agenda item, so
No, the
Well, no, the-
public
yeah, the
comment that
public
happened at the
comments.
beginning of the meeting.
Oh, of items not on
Things
the
have taken
agenda?
place here
He's
in our
asking if he
city,
can
Well-
respond to those commentators.
Okay, then,
like with the school and. you know,
Right, and so that's because I kind of use the same thing where I referenced the thing where it was like, we see how many people we have here having public comment, we need to have an extension. That's how I use it. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's right, but
We can do going forward is make sure that budget item, I mean, not budget item, agenda item we had from a few meetings ago of just that discussion of truth telling process on TRC, I think was how it was written. We could do that.
Okay.
So that would kind of leave more room for the back and forth. And we also always have the option to take anything from the public comment. If the person, is comfortable with it, putting that on an agenda item to make sure we discuss it fully.
I would like to put everything that was discussed on the agenda item for next time. And I would like to have a discussion about it. Absolutely.
So then we'll go to May to June. This will be like working on the report.
I think working on the report should go in the December to April chunk.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be in both, honestly. As there may be key pieces we want to get done sooner rather than later that could inform some like timely recommendations.
when we put the report in, ask for extension, I would try to think I think what needs to be said is that like the things that we heard has to be a factor into asking them what we want to talk about. So I just want to say that as a broad general statement but the things that we heard, where it's been heard at, that people need to tell their truths. So that and that's on the record. So,
Agreed.
I'd also add for that May, June section, something about just like strategizing with community members, organizations on how the TRC process went and what they would like to see, whether it is continued indefinitely again after that, if we get another TRC, or if not, how we would like to see some of these recommendations pressed for.
Commissioner Dillard has her hand up.
This is Commissioner Dillard. I just wanted to say that maybe it should be April through June, since that December, just to give us a little bit more time. Because I kind of see, I think Commissioner Rivera said kind of like a little, we're going in presenting what our findings. So just in giving us a little bit more time to do all that. And as I know that we have it laid out, but I would hope that we would be kind of fluid or flexible based on what's going on in the moment for this timeline. And then I yield the floor.
That makes sense. Thank you.
I agree.
In terms of like the concrete detail in here, I know it's more so on the proposed timeline extension. I feel like there's enough in here for the proposal, whereas it seems to me that whatever their vote ends up being, more than likely going to be something where they'll ask, hey, do you guys want to have a work session or something to talk it out further? Because I don't really see them voting on timeline, just to say vote on timeline without talking to us.
They're not gonna vote at that time because of what's gonna happen in January, so that.
Yeah, so we can essentially just like flesh it out to them live, but yeah, this is, to me, looks like a solid framework to begin. Does anyone feel like there's anything we're really missing still?
Is what it is, so.
Chastity, see your hands up, and just wasn't sure if you still had.
Oh, no, I forgot to take it down.
And then
I think
We can't have any kind of a quick emergency meeting to speak about certain things, or how does that work as of right now?
That's
Or
not-
we
not-
we can do emergency meetings, just the only thing on it is, I think weekdays definitely are the requirement.
There's
Or
not a
does it not matter?
require-
Okay.
requirement, no.
I know the one thing is that there just has to be some kind of advance notice to the public. Just like minimum of 48 hours, was it?
24.
24, okay, 24. So,
Are we gonna do that?
yeah, we have the option at any time. So
Okay.
major event comes up, and that's all we want to talk about, can make a meeting for it. Just the things to know are, if it's going to be a public meeting, we just have to make sure we know we're going to have the quorum for it.
I'm good on that.
Agreed.
For that last section, I just like to include a bullet point about sharing our recommendations with the community through like public meetings, community events, and other media.
Great ad, actually gives it time to start like building out a little bit, get some feedback.
Sorry, I was meeting April through June.
Sorry.
Should we try to quantify numbers? Like when it says lots of testimony, should we have a goal? Or is there a reason to keep it vague?
I think it's tough to have the goal, because I don't want it to seem like a bar we're trying to reach, rather that however few or however many, and expect it to be more rather than less,
Mhm.
all for it.
I agree. That makes sense.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend to City Council that we extend the timeline of the Ad hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission through June 2023 with the proposed timeline as shown here.
Like to-
Ollie, second.
And Stephanie, can we get roll call?
Commissioner Ali,
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel,
Yay.
Commissioner Dillard,
Yes.
Gatua,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera,
Yes.
Commissioner Traore.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you for your
Next-
work, Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank
much. Next, we do have updates on the progress of the Fund Excluded Workers Coalition and the American Rescue Plan. And before we talk about this, want to give the public a chance to comment. Does anyone from the public want to comment on this item before we begin? All right, we're now on to the commission discussion. Eric, once again, before I say anything, just want to defer to you since you have the more of the direct involvement.
Yeah, so what happened in the past couple days is the Johnson County supervisors, they have passed $2 million to give to excluded workers, but they've used the majority of money for other different things, but they only put aside $2 million for excluded workers. Now, they've worked hard and battled for the past 6 to 8 months, almost a year, about this. Most of those people that worked hard will be excluded because of red tape. Maybe they don't have the proper documents, maybe they're, undocumented people. Most of the people that would benefit from this program are people who didn't go out there and support the school to workers. And also, another part about it that's I don't agree with is that they're not going to roll it out until March of 2022. So we're going to go through a winter where it's possible that it could be another pandemic if, you pay attention to what's going on with the pandemic. There's been a lot of more outbreaks. So it's just not enough money. And the people that worked hard, they're continuing to work hard, and they're moving it along to other counties and teaching them about how the government gets these funds, that's supposed to help the people, because the plan is called the American Rescue Plan. It's not, it's to rescue the American people. So $2 million for all the people who were affected during the pandemic, which is going to be red tape, and they're not gonna not they have not really clarified how it's going to be distributed. It's going to be distributed by the government, or it's going to be distributed by the county, which is going to be a bunch of red tape. And some people, I believe that, if you have an address and you're working here in Johnson County and you struggle through the pandemic and you are an essential worker, you should receive some of those funds, because without those essential workers, this economy in this city wouldn't have worked at all. And with that, I'm gonna yield.
Once again, thank you for everything you've done on that. And I don't get at all how it takes, I think March 3rd, 2022 would be almost a full year, if not a full year, since the act was actually passed.
Exactly.
So as we said, since what was it, May?
Yep.
That they were probably just going to stall on this, wait till after the election, et cetera, et cetera. They said no. It's
Yep.
exactly what they did anyways. So, well, I guess we weren't lying. From there, disappointing to say the very, very least. All you're going to give is $2 million. American Rescue Plan, Build Back Better. Two things you hear all the time.
Yep.
How do you build back better when you don't actually invest in the people that support the community? So this is all your frontline workers. This is all those excluded workers, those people that, you got to sit at home, they brought you your food, or while you sat at home, they made sure your goods could get shipped around. For me, I worked at Amazon Logistics for a few months, like a little later in the pandemic, like November or so to like mid-spring. And every single person I saw there just working so hard. And I'm talking overnight shifts, doing anything and everything they can to make sure they get there. And I just heard the craziest stories all the time of all the stuff they're dealing with, what they're going through. And with the size of checks that are going to come out, there's no chance they're all going to be covered, and there's no chance they're all going to be covered adequately. Since I've left, I know the pay has gone up, but still that wasn't what the rate was the whole time through. And I don't know what it is now, but I don't know, maybe they're not whole still. At the
And
end,
then they're gonna the Johnson County supervisors or Johnson County, like, they're gonna celebrate this as we're helping the people, and we gave out this much money and we helped the people, but it's not enough. They actually shouldn't be celebrating. They should be ashamed of themselves. So I'm gonna yield on that one.
For that 2 million, is that, so I know it's the Johnson County. Does that include the contribution from the city's part of it, or is that just the Johnson County portion?
That's the Johnson County portion. The city, they did less. It's equivalent to our budget that we don't get to use. So their part of it is about $1 million. And they said 1 million, but they wasn't even specific on their part, and they didn't even came up with a date as far as I know. But they said 1 to 1.5 million, which is, equivalent to the budget that we can't use. And they're gonna help all these, people that suffered during the pandemic. And they're supposed to include that they're gonna help formerly incarcerated people as well. With $1 million, how many people go around, ask people? It's so many people who struggled during the pandemic. So doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So if you add it up, I guess that's about $3.5 million to help probably tens of thousands of people who struggle. But we'll see how they work it out. Probably be a bunch of red tape, but with that I yield because that's a, like that subject right there is, it bothers me a lot.
There's been a lot of studies on what happens to countries when middle classes shrink. You don't need studies to realize what happens there if you've ever grown up with not a lot. But essentially what occurs when middle classes shrink, you get more people in lower class, which means you have fewer and fewer and fewer people that have enough money to get by, that have enough money to spend, meaning that you're going to have more and more of the actual resources being consumed by those that do have the means to purchase them. The other thing that results in is things like drug addiction, drug use, unstable families, etc. So
yeah, and I agree with that because when they don't help the people, they need to get help because we never went through anything like this in a whole lifetime. I lived in America for my whole life and I saw a lot of different tragedies and things like that. But a tragedy like this pandemic, I never saw that many people die in the last year and a half. And so when people don't have a place to go, of course they might turn to things, that might be related to crime or drug use, but, all what would happen is funds and stuff would get used to increase law enforcement and say the crime rate's going up. Well, he didn't help anybody. I mean, you're right there.
like reacting as if the correlation matched, whereas like not actually studying what made it happen in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. I could talk all day, so we probably should move on from that one.
I'll have to talk all night if I don't
we should
stop
just move
then.
on from that
Yeah.
one.
Does anyone else have anything on this?
Yeah, I want to
We're-
hear if anybody else. All day on that one.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you.
Oh, one sec, right before you go, I just want to give Daphne a quick chance.
Go ahead, Commissioner Daniel.
Good evening. I think it's fairly hypocritical for the city to hold things or have things like the eviction help desk to have quote unquote general relief. And yet the people who were most impacted by the pandemic are going to be left out in the cold again. We're excluding them again. And it really seems like everything the city does is for appearances. And there's just not enough people to call them out. And apparently when you call them out, you may end up becoming ICPD's next anyway, I want to remain respectful, but I implore the public to pay attention to this issue and start calling out some of this hypocrisy because it's getting pretty ridiculous that we have FED help desk and yet we are not giving money to people to help them pay their rent. Then what is the point of that? And with that, I yield.
This is Commissioner Rivera. I just wanted to add that the act of refusing the recommendations not only made by the Fund Excluded Workers Coalition itself, but also the recommendations that we as a commission have made to City Council, the recommendations that the Human Rights Commission have made to City Council on the urgent allocation of these funds, the withholding of these monies and the reduction in the commitment is an act of violence against BIPOC individuals in our community, right? You were talking about kind of the stress of being low income. These are also people who might be in mixed legal status families. They face a lot of threats in a lot of ways to their livelihoods, to their health. We talk a lot in healthcare about adverse childhood experiences, and poverty is one of the stresses that can result in lifelong illness, disability, or at least increase the risk of that. So the choices that City Council is making now, these have like real impacts on the lives and health of people. And I just want us as a commission to remember that. I want the city to hear that. I want members of our community to hear that. I think the Fund Excluded Workers Commission or Fund Excluded Workers Coalition right now, the priority goals and points that we want to keep making to City Council is, one, the current commitment is not enough. Two, these funds were needed months and months ago. And three, any disbursement of these funds needs to go directly into the hands of the people who need them most without a middleman. I know I've been the one sort of really advocating for community partnership, but on this issue, we really need to be advocating that the disbursement of these funds and the way that we're advocating needs to be in the form of direct cash payments. So with any action we continue taking and any partnership we continue making with the coalition, those need to be our stated goals and need to be talking points for other people in our community.
Thank you for making those points. I think those are really valid requests and really easy to remember to, just remind people of what they're asking for. Before we move on, I had noticed that someone in the audience had their hand up and I didn't know if it was a mistake, but if the rest of the commission is okay, I would like to allow them to
Yeah.
talk. Cool. Stephanie?
Stephanie, we're unable to hear you.
Mic might be connecting, or it might be on the wrong input. So just check on that side. If you're on the desktop version, there should just be that that unmute button, that bottom left corner. There's that arrow, and that should let you change your microphone input.
Computer, audio.
We are good on audio on our side, right?
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Looks like the hand
You
just
just
went
put
down.
a hand down now.
Oh yeah, I forgot. There's no chat. Okay. Stephanie.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
Sorry, that I have no idea what was going on. There's not even a speaker on my computer that is named that. I don't know what it was registering, but it took me a minute. So I guess what I wanted to talk about quickly is kind of related to this. It was something that came up in ICMA in our Discord chat. It was one of the people that cooks for us is volunteering to help. I don't know that it necessarily is important at which nonprofit in town, but it's a rent eviction protection. And they were commenting on like the extremely arduous application process and the amount of documentation. Like they're asking for volunteers to sit with people through the process. And this Hannah is going to do that. And that's why it came up in our conversation. And obviously that makes me ragey, but it's something that like, I just kind of wanted to bring to your, I'm sure you're aware that those kinds of things are going on, but just in this general discussion felt like it was a good idea. Maybe even just echoing what Kiva said about making sure the money is just going to the people it needs to go to without so much of a middleman, handing out the money, because the process for applying for some of these programs is overwhelming a lot of people. And to the point that they are bringing volunteers in to and the amount of documentation that some of these people have is unattainable to them. Like they cannot come up with the documentation because they're undocumented, that they need to apply for these programs. And I don't know, obviously I don't know that you have any input in that. It's just another maddening aspect of, even though the money's out there, I'm not certain that it's going to get to the people who are supposed to be getting it.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Wangui Gadua, and I'm piggybacking on Commissioner Rivera's last comment and also Commissioner Daniels when they were talking about the amount of time and work and money used to get any person trying to get, and I'm speaking directly to especially getting rental assistance, especially as a result of COVID. As the coordinator of NISA African families and working with African immigrants and refugees, a population that is already marginalized all the way from international borders and then into our city, since our state is one of the UNHCR refugee destination. So working with these people who are already very traumatized and going through that whole process, because I am a multi-legal and mobile advocate. I'm right there with the person as they go through. Somebody is looking for rental, getting rental assistance of maybe $540. And the amount of, there has to be an interpreter, a translator, somebody who is volunteering their time, and then going through the amount of paperwork that through Iowa Finance that somebody has to go through, the amount of time. This is a person whom I have to figure out how they have to get from their home, which they are almost getting evicted from, the transportation, all these things before, and even there has to be a call to a landlord whom in the first place does not even want that person. And if the landlord does not pick up their phone, they are not going to get the assistance. Yes, getting the $540, getting it directly to the person who is already, Commissioner Rivera, you used the word violence. Already, this is somebody who's already got violence from people who are close to them, maybe a husband, maybe a wife, maybe a boyfriend or somebody. Then to me, now our city, our system is continuing with this violence, and they've got the money to do it. Continuing, instead of working with this person to get the power out of them to be on their own feet, they continue with this all roundabout way, and sometimes connected to mental health. Some of these people end up in our psych ward or attempting to take their life, because I'm thinking of somebody whom it has taken exactly a year to get assistance, and exactly so many organizations, so many people getting paid, including even me, getting paid before this person finally gets the $540. So I'm saying all this in very many words and giving my example of the actual groundwork that is being involved. And in this particular case, I was lucky the person only came out with getting depressed. that they didn't, but actually even mentioning taking away their life because they are going after $540. And guess what? So much more was used in the process of the hoops that they have to jump to get there. And my question is, aren't these people human beings? And isn't our system able to be human? Or is it thinking that is, all these things are human? And with that, I yield.
Thank you. If we don't have anything else on this one, I'd like to go on to agenda item number 9. So I think there's more strategizing to be done on the excluded workers fund aspect, but I just want to make sure we have more of the coalition members or excluded workers themselves to actually kind of guide us more so on what they'd like to see done.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty good update on that. And that's what's going on with it. And that's where we at right now. The more information I can get, the more that I would share, definitely. So that's where we at right now with it.
Thank you. Agenda item number 9, we have discussion on TRC local partners. Do we have anyone from the public that'd like to comment on this one?
Hello, Noah. I'm one of the drivers for Iowa City's mutual aid's houseless lunch program that they started back in the pandemic when no one else. He's like, well, I've met several people who were the only people who delivered them their food for that day, which is
Hey, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just want to know what you said you was driving for what? I'm sorry.
the Iowa City mutual aid. So like, I'm just here to I guess offer because I know the past meetings you're talking about. I know Stephanie talked at the last one too. I'm just here to like offer because I know there's people who would definitely have truths to come talk about that. And I've seen like the cops harass them many times, and shelter house harass people too. Unfortunately, it's just yeah. So just I guess that's kind of the end of my comment. Just as offered. And I know there's other drivers I'm sure would want to help too. So yeah.
Thanks, Noah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for delivering food to the vulnerable communities during the pandemic. It truly makes a huge difference in their lives.
My name's Felicia Pieper. Thank you. I also drive with ICMA, the Iowa City Mutual Aid Coalition Collective, and I'm also an organizer with IFR. And I just wanted to bring up that I also work with these folks. I'm working with someone right now who's in an extremely precarious situation, and I'm trying to figure out how to advocate for them. But I wouldn't bring her here. I think it would be dangerous. And I just, as we're thinking about partnerships, I want to think about the potential harm to the individuals, but also organizational harm. That's less of a point, but like if bringing someone to the TRC loses trust with the organization that you're working with, that has more like compounding harm. So I just want to be like really clear that this dangers people as well, as much as we want to collect these stories. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Was there anyone else from the public that wanted to comment on this item? Before we go into further detail on it, I know we didn't have the West High's Black Student Union organization on this list. I think it was more so recently created, but they're one I would like to reach out to and work with, especially if they're open to it.
Agreed.
I also want to respond to that comment by Commissioner Traore, because we had tasked ourselves 2 weeks ago, this is Wangui Gadua, to reach out to ICCSD and see whom we were going to work with to help us listen to facts and racism experiences in the school district, and especially because the student population who are the majority in ICCSD, not counting the faculty and the staff, are minors. And yeah, that would be a good idea because ICCSD, BSU, I might be giving you the wrong name, has come in timely. And yeah, it would be a good idea to reach out to them as we continue and finding out the two public speakers who have spoken, following that up and see how we can also do that, because we got sidetracked, Commissioner Traore and I, in reaching out into the district. So we shall continue seeing who mayors or BSU may be our point of contact.
Yeah, I do know we have some other contacts in the district. We have Charlie for one, and Laura Gray is another one I've spoken to. And regardless of who we do have now for contacts, whether it's ICCSD, ICCSD Foundation, certain boards and commissions, the student union, student councils, whatever it is, really glad you did bring up the point about the parental aspect, because that's just one thing we just want to make sure is cleared on if there's any parents that might have an issue with their student coming to speak to us. If there's any,
This was actually something that came up like a long time ago. And it is completely up to that student themselves. We actually don't need the parents' permission if they want to tell their truths. This was a question, I think, like way back in the beginning, but I do remember that being one of the things that I remembered. Yeah.
Are we able to go speak with the school and staff or are we?
We have to work that out.
yeah,
but
in terms of
probably
formally,
so.
we'd have to work it out.
Yeah.
Probably so, but you have to just work it out. And just to update on, just on this agenda item, I talked with Dream City officials and they're gonna be on board to be a partner. So there's no doubt about that. Inside Out, I talked with them. They're going through a kind of transition right now. So I will try to reach back around and talk to them as well. So, and South District, those were the things that I was assigned to. South District was kind of a no question, no brainer type thing. So I wouldn't worry about that. But the only thing I got left is, the Inside Out thing. I have to just go back around to them because they're in the transition phase right now. But the other things, Dream Center and South District, those things are, I guess in the bag. So, I have to worry about those things. So.
I can provide an update on my contacts. I admit that I sent out my emails fairly late in the game, so I'm still waiting on hearing back from a lot of folks. But the way I strategized some of my contacts was I grouped Open Heartland, which is the group that Elizabeth Bernal represents, as well as Prairie Lands Freedom Fund, because I know that organizers from those two organizations frequently collaborate. So they're having more discussions on kind of getting on the same page before they give us an official response about partnering with us. I have heard back from Stephanie in the Iowa City Mutual Aid Collective, and they're down. And it was suggested that if we did host events with them, it might be sort of integrated, like a truth-telling session, integrated into their normally scheduled community meals, but further details would need to be worked out for that. Waiting to hear back on Monsoon. I need to still reach out to the shelter house and my contacts there. And I've reached out to a couple of the cultural centers through the U, specifically the Latinx and Native American Cultural Center, as well as the Asian American Cultural Center. Those are my updates.
And I forgot one part of my update too is the Iowa Catholic Worker We supported them before they even, thought about supporting us. So they will support us. But right now, I need to sit down with them and talk to them because they kind of, on the front lines of things right now. So they're doing a lot of things. If you've been paying attention to the news, they've been everywhere on the front line. But since we supported them, I don't think that'll be a problem at all either. So I just gotta have a good conversation with the right person. But right now, they're every city council and every Johnson County meeting, and they're on the front line. So I'm gonna let them do that, and before I contact them, so that's the best.
Yeah, during the week, Commissioner Wangui again, in the 2 weeks, we were able to get together with Commissioner Rivera and divide up some of those groups. He has mentioned whom he already sent the letter we agreed on. I was able to reach to 4 organizations that are already doing the work of working in bringing out power in the people of color. The first group one of the groups that I contacted and I've already been working with and I've spoken about in our meetings is the African Communities Network in Johnson County and Lynn County. So I already talked to the director because I directed our letter to her. And on this Sunday, she is going to, she's called a special board meeting to discuss their working together because there's already a team that has already been following and ready to work with the African communities in their cultural and linguistic proficient way. So those ones I already have a response from on behalf of the TRC. The second group, the other 3 groups, I do not have a response yet, but they're people that I've always worked with. Iowa City Commission, I talked to the executive director, Teresa Stecker. I emailed, I don't have a response yet. She directs the IC Compassion and they give services to immigrants and refugees in IC. I don't have an answer yet from African American Council. I directed our letter to Shalisa Gladney in the U of I campus. So, and she also coordinates the Multicultural Center at the U of I, and BSC Black Students Union in the U of I campus is also under her, and also the African Students Association. And those associations, I also interact with them as I coordinate NISA African Family Services and also under African Communities of Johnson County Network. The 4th organization that I reached out to is the International Student Support and Engagement Coordinator. This is Shuhui Lin. I'm familiar with working with her when I plan events for these groups of people, international students, for them bringing out their power. So, but I do not have a response yet. But even as I do this, I think of, as people are responding to us and as we continue on the work of collecting truths, I think of something that has also been mentioned, that whether people fear retaliation or some sort of attracting some negative reactions on themselves, even as they would want to come forward and work with us and come forward to bring their truth. But me expressing that doesn't mean that I and other individuals don't go forward with our work. I yield.
The best conversation I had actually so far was earlier today with Pastor Smith from the Johnson County Interfaith Coalition. So, just kind of sat down, told each other a little bit about ourselves. And one thing that just kept coming up over and over and over again was we seem to agree on more than we disagree on. And I think that's just going to be something that's going to tie more of these groups together rather than keep them away. But just important to get those of them that are ready to step forward here and now there. So it's that effect of, seeing that community and wanting to be a part of it. And we talked about just having more conversations with other community groups, like their leaders or stakeholders, kind of just roundtables, and seeing what we can strategize on, what we can agree on in terms of messaging, and then kind of bringing that to the table in terms of official like participation collaboration with TRC. I'm not sure that we came to concrete anything on that, but I don't see it being ruled out by any means. And then still do have plans to meet with Fred Newell from Dream City after the holidays. And then
it's gonna be a little longer than that.
Yeah, he'll be gone for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then for University of Iowa, I did have a chance to talk just very, very briefly before the last meeting, even with Broderick Binns, who's the head of the diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think it's the official title. I can't remember, but I'm gonna look to get like an official meeting or whatever it is with him, see a little more of if there's specific groups he might be able to help us get into contact with at the university, or if there's room to kind of work together on these things.
Will you let me and Commissioner Gathua know what those recommendations might be?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Then I just think in terms of all the other organizations, any that we haven't gotten to thus far, we can just be sure to reach out to them prior to the next meeting, and just making sure those that have responded thus far, if they want to meet with us again before the next meeting, if we can get 4 or less of us there, then it doesn't have to be public or anything, and we can start planning whether it's one group at a time or 2, 3, or 4. Just know that it's probably be hard next week with Thanksgiving holidays.
And one last thing before we go to the next agenda item. I think that it's important when we're talking about like local partners and the truth telling sessions that we will have. And I don't plan on having any like truth telling sessions here in this building. And I think that most of us would feel that same way. I would agree. And I can talk more about this during commissioner comments, but I think we're all on the same page about that, and all on the same page of making sure that we're finding a safe space where there is trust, and we can have support for them that's not just us listening to the stories.
I'm
I-
working on that.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make that that last final note.
I will not listen to no truth in this bill. Yeah, I'm working on that. So
Agreed. Don't see that happening,
My rest.
or at least not, not
yeah,
happening.
truth in this building. So
I'd like to ask a question and see if others would have ideas about this. I'd like to have a little bit more information to provide some of these organizations or partners on like just like an initial framework for what the truth telling sessions might be. And for that reason, I'm wondering if it would be helpful sooner rather than later for Eddie and and Mary Hoaxender or whatever the group is, to have a meeting with us so that we can
Yeah.
really get into the nitty gritty of like the bones of what these
Yeah.
truth telling sessions might be. And I think that at that time we can kind of address questions about ethics and or not confidentiality, but like just making sure that we're doing it the right way so that we would be prepared to answer those questions for any of our potential partners.
That works for me and I can set that up. Do you want to just text me your availability and we can find a time?
Well, I was wondering if they could just like, if we can make that an agenda item and that could
Oh,
be
at the next
focus-
meeting?
the-
Yeah.
The focus
Yeah.
at one of our upcoming meetings.
Yes.
Are you saying that we don't have a location?
No, that's not it.
That's not it.
So
We're just
by-
not gonna be
yeah.
using this.
By default, locations we use are like city property and things like that, but probably be best to go to areas where these organizations actually work in.
Yeah.
Right.
to
It's not
Just make it
just-
easier on people.
Okay.
Understood.
Are you ready to move on to the next agenda item?
Go ahead.
So the follow-up on the circle invitation. Do we have anyone from the public that wants to comment on this before we have our discussion? So, me and Kevo and Eric and Wangui all had the pleasure of attending a circles with Annie Tucker, V, and Angie Jordan. And it was just a really,
Before you keep going, just want to note for the public for context. It's not that everyone from the commission couldn't make it, but if we have 5 or more of us in any of these events, they have to be open to public.
yes, yeah, quorum is 5 and
Yeah, we only had.
Sorry,
Um,
we couldn't be there.
We was, yeah, we were struggling. We were trying to text, yeah.
and I felt like it was a really insightful, and I feel like I got closer to Wangui and Eric and Kevo. It was not anything that I actually was expecting, but I didn't really go in having any expectations because it was my first time being involved in a circle. But yeah, it was really nice to step away from everything and not have to worry about, for lack of a better term, the BS that we're all having to deal with, whether it's through this or in our daily lives or things like that. So it was nice to decompress with fellow commission members and just learn a little bit more about one another. I yield.
Yeah, I would go too. I'm gonna keep it short, but it was really nice to, be able to listen to people because that's the most important thing is to listen to people. And the way that it was set up, it gave people a space to say, a safe space where they can say, what's on their mind, what they feel. And sometimes you may see a person every day, but you don't know the stuff that's going on inside of them. It was kind of eye opening. When I went home, I just kind of just reflected on it, and I was like, this is a good thing. I never been in a circle myself before, so it was my first time. With that idea.
Yeah, I'll say that it was a really wonderful experience. It was therapeutic for me to participate, and like you, Amel, I felt like I just got a lot more opportunity to get to know each of you on a more personal level. A couple thoughts that I had walking away was just a really fantastic reminder of how important it is for we address each other as commissioners, and we have a fairly sort of specific charge and role within this commission. But I think it's really important reminder for me and for us moving forward as we continue to do the work to not place ourselves on any hierarchy above, the people that we're trying to serve, that the people whose voices we're trying to elevate and amplify, that those are the people that need to be centered in the work that we're doing. So I appreciate the opportunity to reflect on that. I also was thinking that in terms of where we take circles from here and how we incorporate it into our work, I really envision it being one of the sort of mechanisms that we can recommend certain reconciliatory processes after we collect our stories. But I think that there's a lot of sort of process and ethic that we can take away from the circles themselves into our truth telling, or into the truth telling sessions that we host next year. So I encourage any other commissioners who have not gotten to participate in those to respond to the email or invitations from Angie and Annie and participate. I have no bad things to say about it.
Yeah, I agree with it's Commissioner Wangui again, with what my fellow commissioners who are at this particular circle with the experiences. Yes, it is therapeutic, and if as we have more, it would serve a good purpose for people who are working on this anti-racism work. And I'm thinking of going back all the way to May 25, when George Floyd died. People took up the protest and all that pain. So circles and people who have kept on going and keeping the empowering going, even as when it seems as if probably the city council would be wanting it to be just using ways of diffusing this the tension that was there, and really not it being actual work of actually making our city better. And so it is a tool that would be useful for people to recharge, because both the people in the community who are at the forefront and who are working with the TRC, as the TRC carries out its charge, it's a space to help with the deal with the emotional toll that this work brings with it, and also sit for an hour or two and hear the experiences that you're going through and the fears that you're having, that you are not alone, and also hear that even if you fear and people might tell you you're endangered, that there are others who are, and you come out recharged. So that's one of my main takeaway during that circle. And also space to say very heavy things in a space that is safe, and in a space where discussions, honest discussions, can go on. So that was my takeaway out of the circle that we attended.
So I really like the circles process. I think I've watched videos and I've done like a lot of research, and I really believe in the healing that can happen. And, you know, I know a lot of people in this room right now know about my situation regarding my sexual assault. And when I think of justice and what justice looks like for me, I picture sitting and speaking with this man in a circle where he is being held accountable, and we're discussing in a safe space, obviously. And in these situations, people have their own support that comes in. It's not just the facilitator and you and this other person. There's also your own personal support. But I picture it being a really powerful process that can be used in our court system here. It's already been used one other time that I know of for sure. And the police officer seemed to have been really compelled by the circle experience. So I have a lot of faith in circles, and it's not that I think that, this is the only thing that will work or blah, 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 but I really think that trying to implement more facilitators of circles and facilitators that look like us commissioners, I think that would be really cool. And I think also when we're working with other entities and like different organizations, I think, and I'm hoping that people from those organizations will want to learn how to facilitate these circles, because they're the ones that have the closest connection to those communities that we might not be able to they might not trust us as much as they would trust, someone in the organization. But yeah, that's just kind of my thought about it. I see Daphne has her hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I think it's important that we make it clear that circles or talking circles are culturally are part of Indigenous people's culture. And so before we participate or encourage talking circles, we really should keep that in mind and understand the very slippery slope between homage or paying respect or adapting a technique or cultural whatever, a cultural tradition or something, and appropriating it. I don't know if I feel comfortable with circles. I feel like there are a few more things that would need to be in place before I'd feel comfortable. But it is something to keep in mind, and it is something I want to make sure that we recognize, that this is almost a gift that we are embracing from Indigenous people who were kind enough to share this.
Yeah.
And it has very real spiritual like value in that, and it's not just merely a sociology experiment or a sociology exercise. And with that, I yield.
Yeah, thank you for making that point, Daphne. And I apologize. I should have started it off by saying that when the circle started, Annie Tucker was very, straightforward and said these practices are not. She learned from Indigenous peoples, and she was very clear about where this started and how she learned about this process and who she learned the processes from.
Exactly. I agree
And
with
yeah, so I apologize for not making that clear first. And she has spoken a few times at these meetings, saying that she understands that, she's just a white woman coming to us. But I think that she really did a good job of educating us on how she learned the circles process and who she learned the circles process from. I don't know about what the three others, what they think about it, but she did make that very clear.
I agree with what you're saying, because she did make it very clear about where that came from, and she gave us. We didn't even start the circle until she explained that whole thing. So
yeah.
Yes, she did go into acknowledging and saying she isn't getting involved in any cultural misappropriation. And yeah, there's a lot of education that would go into studying Indigenous people's restorative justice circles before somebody can embark on them. And as I was going into them because so the very first time Anitaka started talking about them, for me, going into them and following into that, like Commissioner Ali has said some time back, we did have community circles some time back, and it was conversations with the police and the communities, and sitting down in circles with people who are hurting you, them talking, and the ones that I sat in were people who Black and white mostly, and talking. And my main takeaway from those circles was, and mostly the major thing that was being talked about is people harming others physically. And the main conclusion because funding, I think, got exhausted for funding the circles, was nobody wants to be harmed. It doesn't matter what skin color the person is, but nobody wants to have a neighbor who is harming them. You don't want them to be your color. You don't want them to be any other color. So that's one of the reasons that I support circles, because they allow the person being harmed and the other person, the person who is perpetrating the harm, to have some safe space to face each other and talk. The other thing, for me, circles resonate with my own culture that I grew up in. A lot of African nations use council of elders while using councils of elders, and we still do, to organize ourselves, where people will actually be in a circle, as even the leader of the circle of the council would be first among equals, recognizing each other's humanity. So that's another reason. And also, as a licensed school counselor in Iowa, and a school counselor educated and trainer and supervisor, I've done my research, and circles also work in schools when we are dealing with bullying in schools and violence in schools. We are able to use them to have, because even as a student who is bullying another, even as they face consequences, we still need to sit in a circle and for the students, it's a safe space. So thank you, Commissioner Daniels, for bringing that up, that people need not just getting hyped up and running circle and not having the background knowledge and the research and where all this comes from, because we might end up doing more harm even to the people, the very people that we are thinking we would be working on bringing out their power. With that, I yield.
So just the only thing I have on it is that not only do I want to participate, but also I want to make sure the people that are leading the circles and organizing these things are also being compensated for their time and efforts. So I'd like to work with Annie and Angie and whoever else is authorized to kind of like lead these things, or wanting to participate in these programs, making sure they are compensated for their time. So I'll be in contact with all of you, see if there's something we can work out in terms of the receipts, so we can make sure to get those to the city. And then when it's time for a budget to actually be truly considered, making sure that's a line item on there.
No problem.
So we are actually now on to agenda item number 11, which is announcements of commissioners or staff. Do we have commissioners with any announcements?
I can start. I'm someone who is a strong advocate for expressing gratitude as a personal process that can be really helpful. And so I hope that you all commissioners take some time to practice gratitude next week or now, whenever. I think it could be helpful. But I also wanted to promote some of the work that fellow Commissioner Sakowis does through the Great Plains Action Society. They are hosting an event in Des Moines in conjunction with Humanize My Hoodie to discuss truth giving, which is resource and education opportunity for people to learn more about what Thanksgiving means to Indigenous peoples. If you're not able to participate in that, there is an online resource at truthsgiving.org, which I would encourage all of us to really take a deep dive into, as part of our commitment to Indigenous folks, so that it can be a learning opportunity for us. And then maybe we can share some of what we learn during any activities we all partake in next week. Thanks.
I only have one announcement, and it's to address what occurred after the last meeting. Just want to make sure I had said it in my own words, but I initially thought about maybe going to that city council meeting to say it there, then decided against it of the not much time or whatever would be given, but here kind of have that flexibility. But first and foremost, drunk driving is not okay. And I am someone that's done it twice. Terrible, terrible, terrible choices. I don't always make good choices. And I'm going to be, truthful in that. But the other thing I want to add is that I don't always make bad choices either. And for anyone where that was the first time you'd heard of me, heard my name, whatever it was, that is not who I am. That was January 5th of 2019 is when that occurred. It's been over 1,000 days since that day. So to me, the real issue was that I was essentially forced to just put that out there for anyone and everyone at the same time. And of course, always going to be public information, but it's one thing for someone to go looking for it and see it, or me to tell someone that I know, and for it to just be out there as just a major story. Then you're hearing from people you haven't heard from for months, maybe years, reaching out to you, asking you, are you okay? Like, what happened? Is something else up? Or having people ask you if you are okay because they think something else bad happened to you. So I want to thank you, especially Wengui, for making sure that my mom was calmed, because I know she would have freaked out initially with what had happened. But at first I was just worried that something had happened to a family member of mine. Just really glad that that's not the case. Putting all of this behind me is the utmost priority of mine, in that not only do I not work in the same field at all, I don't like a lot of the same things. I don't do a lot of the same things. I live a completely different life. These days, the hardest thing for me is when something comes in the way of what I've tried so hard to fight for, which is not only a better job in the sense that I can do more to help my family out, but also just being a better person so I can be better to the people around me. And being taken back to that self of me that wasn't really coherent in there, that was more so worried about, hey, this is what's going on with me. Like, yeah, I got anxiety, I got depression, I'm feeling terrible. Like, I'm just going to do stupid things. I've learned that's not the way. It's just going to make it worse. And yeah, full disclosure, like I deal with mental health, but like that's not the excuse for what happened. What happened was just me also just making terrible choices. So anyone that does hear that, I want you to know if you're going through anything like that too, you can really turn it around. And I just want to say thank you to all my family and friends that have stuck by me through all of it, because I wouldn't be here right now without all of you. And for everyone in the community that spoke up for me, thank you too. And for whatever it is that the city or police department wants to say right now on it, honestly, no offense to you all, but I just don't really care, because you don't know what I went through. And I don't know that all of you truly want to ask, because if you did, there's no way you would have done what you did after that last meeting. With that, I yield.
I want to go next. I am not responding to Commissioner Traore's announcement. No, I'm not. I just want to say the last 2 weeks have been very heavy for me. And I start with also saying, I'm sorry, Commissioner Traore. That happened right after the TRC meeting. And through the media, a lot of people in the community, they asked that question, and the ICPD chief did respond to that and did say it could have been done better. It could have been done privately without or seeming as if there is some agenda to it in targeting the TRC. And so that was heavy. And then in addition to all that, there are the cases that are taking place, Ahmaud Arbery's case and the Kenosha case. So that is heavy for people who look like me. And then of course, bringing the case that happened in Grinnell. And then in addition to that, on November 9, media, we have the Peter Kelly case. And for me, this is personal because the police officer who was involved sat with me in some meetings asking for NISA or African communities to work so that he can be able to have a forum or forums with the African communities to translate the trust that the communities have with me on that. So anytime I think of all this, my body shivers because I'm working on the historical mistrust of colonization in Africa, slave trade in the Americas of Black bodies. To today, somebody will always say that happened many years ago, centuries ago, but the trauma has come down to me, even my 18-month grandchild. So it is still, these things bring it up for me. So all those things happening in the last 2 weeks and the case that has been going on in Iowa City West High School, and even the response of the principal saying that the protests in the hallways of the school and the school campus were disruptive to learning. I am an educator. I am a licensed school counselor in Iowa. The thought that goes around in my head, what brought those protests? Doesn't that matter? Isn't that disruptive? But protesting what went on before is disruptive. So it has been a stressful week. But I am very grateful because after our meeting, a lot of us commissioners hardly got any sleep because we were trying to understand it. For me, as a black-skinned mother it was very, very frightening to be there, and even just seeing the on that particular day, as we went out and were going towards getting out of the building, there was a high presence of police officers, and which hadn't seemed like anything until when until I saw Commissioner Traore being in between two police officers. And for me, that was very triggering. A Black young man in the middle of two police officers, and at the steps, two others. In what for them it's professional pose, two of them, but for me, it's threatening with all the belts, and me also seeing guns and whatever else is there, and a Black man. All that was very, very triggering. And also thinking and seeing all the recent videos of, I couldn't help thinking of police brutality, and automatically my arms went around Commissioner Traore, and I was even thinking, how much protection would I have provided? And on the street facing us, there were two police cars with their lights on, right on us. And then there was a community member, Charlie and Annie Tucker. They were also there, and also Annie joined the embrace and joined me. All that, the aftermath, and that's all the adrenaline that I was on, as even at 1 a.m., some of you, I was calling you at 5 a.m. And thank you very much, because I really felt your warmth through the phone call, and even the next day, until when I had to send that email and tell you that Traore, Commissioner Traore, is not there. But at the same time, it still gives me pause. It's very, even when the chief, the ICPD chief, said that it could have been done better, the message I got was, the timing of it was intimidation. But thank you very much for all the assurances, and that tension of about 24 hours, and wondering as we keep continuing to do our work. What is some close friends of mine got frightened, and somebody actually told me, Wangui, you need to get out of TRC, especially because just now, a Spanish teacher not an hour away from here has just been beaten to death by two 16-year-old white boys. You need to get away from that work. It's dangerous work. Thank you very much for letting me again express the thoughts and my fear as all that happened, and that image of being surrounded by the strength of our ICPD, which at that particular moment, it didn't feel very protective. And I'm still feeling pretty tense. Thank you. I yield.
I'm going to say something quick. Mo, and sorry, excuse my French beforehand. I don't give a shit that you drove drunk twice. Like, that doesn't, what happened to you out there is horrible. And what they did was disgusting. and it was on purpose, and nobody can convince me otherwise. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. Um, that's not fair. There are white men who have killed while drunk driving in the same state that have literally walked away that night. I don't think that anyone disagrees that, you know, drunk driving isn't ideal, whatever. But that doesn't even, it doesn't matter what you did. Someone went out of their way to look you up. Another entity, I was told this verbatim, that another agency was made aware of your warrant and told some of the Iowa City police officers. This is clearly someone was looking you up, and clearly someone wanted to give you a little shake in your boots. And whether they admit it or not, I don't really care. I think that the facts are so obvious. I'm proud of you for like maintaining your cool and everything. But this is really messed up. Like I literally was too scared to drive here tonight. I made my nice white boyfriend drop me off and pick me up, because I said, there's no way in hell I'm gonna drive my car and get followed. I don't even want to, like, the thought of even being pulled. I know I'm not doing anything wrong, but the thought of being pulled over literally, it makes me shake. I don't even want to have any interaction with police. And the fact that that happens shows what they're capable of. And I'm not saying that I've been like the most wonderful, citizen. I've been arrested for pot 3 times in this state, you know, like I've done some things. So it doesn't make me feel safe. It doesn't make me have any trust. And I know that the assistant city manager is here, but I really think that some form of accountability needs to happen. You can't just keep using these excuses of, oh, these young officers and just, wow, they're so excited, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like something needs to happen. Someone needs to be held accountable for these things, because I don't feel safe. I don't feel comfortable. Clearly, you know, we've heard tonight that other people telling their truths and coming to us with their testimonies, if it's in this space, people are going to avoid it. They're going to actively avoid it. And I truly, truly, truly believe that. So not only do I want to say what happened to you is so messed up and everything, and you're so strong. The one thing literally that kept me, and I think went gooey up all night, is like, for her, it was for your mom. But I'm like, if this was anyone else, like, what if he had children at home? Like, what if he had like a pet that needed to be fed? What if he had, like, you're just literally picking this guy up on some warrant that's 2 years old and like nothing. Like, if you had a daughter who was getting babysat, I don't like, that's just, it's insane to me. I don't know. And like the fact that you could have literally just been called and made aware of this and then just turned yourself in, or gotten it even figured out, and this would have been so much less of an issue. They wanted to embarrass you, Mohammed. They wanted to make this TRC look like it was run. I don't know. So it just was wanting to embarrass you. And if you don't believe that, that is totally fair. And that is probably, you know, better for your mental sanity. But I can't sit here and say that, you know, I'm comfortable. And I don't think that I can't say for sure that I don't think this would happen again easily. So I'm going to yield to the floor with that.
Yeah, I just got something quick to say. I'm not gonna specifically reply to the situation, but everybody knows that it was wrong. And some people don't understand the effect that it had on other people as well. You know, when I was home and that situation happened, I was outside checking my lights on my vehicle, make sure all my lights working so they wouldn't have no problems. It put me in the mental health thing, like where it bothered my mental health. I was like, these guys are after us. They're gonna try, you know, because unfortunately, I'm well versed in the criminal justice system. So I haven't dealt with it for a long time, almost 10 years now, but I'm well versed in it. And I know that if you said somebody has to do, these amount of days in jail, you're not going to wait. I don't care about what's going on with COVID. Those guys don't wait at all. You're going to go do those 7 days when you're supposed to do those 7 days. It is the actions that happen is very suspicious. Doesn't really make sense at all. I have discussions with people of how we're down in this building every other week. We're in rooms full of cops at times. We're at city council meetings. Someone or somebody or some entity, and I'm glad that it's assistant city manager here, is holding the grudge somewhere, because that should have never happened. And it put me and other commissioners on edge. I was on edge. Well, I didn't come outside for a couple of days, like other people mentioned. I didn't even come outside for a couple of days after that. I just sat inside shouting on my phone, like, this is not right. And then it just doesn't make sense. This needs to be heard. I know that I'm looking at here, and we're not supposed to respond to what commissioners say, but it's needed. I sat in my house for 2 days, like, these guys gonna come get me next. Throw a bag of some drugs in my car or something I don't even have. I don't have any warrants, but I still was worried.
Yeah.
I still was just sitting there worried. Even to my wife got to worrying about, like, are you gonna be okay? And I was like, no, because these guys are targeting us. They wanted to arrest any of us. I've been in many rooms with police officers, and they ain't do nothing about it. So it's destabilizing. And it's like, it's so conveniently that we've been sitting in these rooms for all these months, and an election happens, and then that happens. Get some paper and do some math. I yield.
I am sitting, this is Commissioner Johnson, and all I constantly keep hearing is that our fellow citizens, our neighbors, are living in fear due to trying to do the right thing for the betterment of our city, for all of us as a whole. What has the mayor got to say about that, and when can we talk to him? We need to all have a sit down. There's absolutely no reason at all for this in any way, shape, or form. When we were brought onto the TRC, for one, like I said, I came in late, but the TRC was already made to help solve problems here in our community. For more problems to come out of it due to the fact that people are trying to do the job that they asked us to do, that's insane. That makes absolutely no sense. When I hear this is happening to our students and it's just brushed off like it's not a big deal, it enrages me. I have to admit, it was shaking me inside, because those are kids. Those are kids. And then what happened to you? I mean, it just obviously doesn't make sense. Obviously. Something needs to be done immediately. We all need to sit down, period. There's no other way around it. And it needs to be a public thing. Clearly, the public doesn't agree with all of it. It's just what it is. There's a lot of good people in this city. And every single one of those good people that step up and they give their truth and they come out and they speak, they need to be not just heard, understood, and then taken care of. I'm like, I don't want my fellow people to sit here and sit in fear. That's insane. It makes me mad. I don't get scared. I'm a Marine. As a Marine, I get very upset more than anything else. This makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. We need to sit down. We need an emergency time to talk, because that's out of control. What's next? And what are we going to wait for? Other than I don't even want to hear it. I just want to talk, and I want it to be on record. I think we all need to sit down and really get it together. That's all there is to it. There's too many good people out here for us to be quiet at all. Not at all. And everybody that stood up and stepped up to the plate, let's go again. Let's get back. Let's work together towards this, period. That's simply how I feel. I don't want anybody to feel like they're in fear. That's insane. What sense does that make in this day and age right now, after a lot that's already gone on? that we're still going to keep going down a course that does nothing. I really hope that we can have a sit down immediately, if not sooner. You know? That's my bottom line with it.
Does anyone else have any comments that's online? I couldn't see if their hands are, oh, they're down there. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
And with that, meeting is adjourned. I want to thank everyone for coming. Really do appreciate it.